G'day, guys. It's Swaler here. Episode 4 for Bitcoin for Beginners. I just wanted to have a bit of a chat about pre-mine because someone just said to me before that they believe that Bitcoin had a pre-mine, but I would like to refute that. And I believe that Bitcoin was the one true honest launch, and I don't believe that it is a pre-mined coin at all. So let's just go through what pre-mining is. So a pre-mining is where a token developer, I'll read this, where a token developer allocates a certain amount of tokens for themselves before releasing the source code to the community at large. In other words, it is the production of a set number of tokens which a developers create out of thin air and put aside for themselves before the cryptocurrency has launched to the public. So that's the definition of pre-mine on this particular website. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through the first 11 coins just to discuss, what's actually pre-mined and what's not, and how they actually what their early beginnings were. So, of course, on Bitcoin here we've got block 0. That's the Genesis block. Bitcoin's Genesis block was hard coded because it was basically created by Satoshi right at the beginning to be able to bootstrap the entire network, and of course it minted 50 Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin is hard coded in there. You can't release that 50 Bitcoin. So in terms of pre-mine, you could say that the 50 Bitcoin was the pre-mine, but that was what was needed to be just to bootstrap it, and you can't spend it anyway. So it's not like you're paying it's not paying 50 Bitcoin to Satoshi to be able to start off the network. Now, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to Bitcoin, Satoshi mined all the coins basically, alongside Hal Finney back at the beginning. How Satoshi expended, laptop energy, electricity, time, hardware, all that for where a value was at zero for like at least a year or more. So there was no true incentive to be able to keep the blockchain going apart from just trying to get it started. Most of the early coins, the suspected 1 million Bitcoin, which is supposed to be allocated to Satoshi, most of them have not moved. Only a few moved here and there, to sort of toy around with sending on to Hal Finney and getting people to test that out. So a majority of them are still existing. And as you can see here, when you click next, you can see that most of those Bitcoin are still in play. They are still stuck where they are, and they have not moved. So I doubt that any of them really will move. If any do, they probably might be related to someone else's private keys. So that's my feeling at this point in time. Now, Ethereum had an early ICO. It was effectively the first ICO. And as you can see written on this pie chart here, the Genesis had 72 million ETH, all pre-mined at the beginning, and that was issued out as a token sale, and it was sold for a certain amount of ETH for a certain amount of Bitcoin, and people participated in it, and then they received their ETH in transition for the actual Bitcoins that they handed over. So to some degree, there is a bit of a sort of early distribution on the early coins, but at the same time, the 72 million coins was pre-mined, and the Bitcoin that those other people had, which they paid for this, went straight to the Ethereum, sort of dev community, sort of network to be able to fund their development. So I would consider this to be a pre-mine. And of course, this 33% here, this is the block rewards, this 37 million. They are purely block rewards from inception all the way up until today. So that's the amount of rewards that the miners are actually getting. And the uncle rewards here, that's for every uncle block that gets mined. For anyone who is a little bit confused about what's going on, if an Ethereum block is solved, it will be rewarded with a certain amount of Ethereum. But if another block is solved at the exact same time and there's a bit of a clash and they have similar files, that secondary block might be considered a uncle and be put to, it'll be sort of connected but put to the side, and it will receive an uncle reward. So it continues on, whereas in Bitcoin, there is all orphans basically get cut off and they don't get rewarded. Moving on, you've got XRP. XRP has a maximum supply of 100 billion coins or tokens or whatever you like to call the XRP units. It was 100% pre-mined, and it's still to this day 100% pre-mined. Some have burnt off the end from fees, but the actual circulating supply, as you can see right here, is at the 45 billion mark. So there is about 55 billion still inside the actual Ripple organization, either allocated to founders or allocated to like out to other companies and such. Moving on to Tether. Tether is a USD based token, which used to be sitting on the Bitcoin blockchain, and now has moved on to the Ethereum blockchain, and its supply is somewhat elastic. Its supply has been changing depending on demand. And so as you can see here, the demand has continued to rise, and there's just been more and more Tether just coming into existence. Many have disputed whether or not they're 100% backed, but I think that it's all agreed now that they're probably not, and that it's no longer backed by one-to-one with actual dollars. Chainlink is a token that's on the Ethereum blockchain. Chainlink's number 5 on the cryptocurrency market cap, and it has it pre-mined 1 billion coins, and you can see that on the Etherscan here. So if you look up Chainlink on Etherscan, you can see that there's 1 billion coins, and of course this is the allocation of all the largest wallets that own it. And just so that you can understand what the distribution is, you can see here token sale to the public 35%, network invested program 35%, and retained by team for development network 30%. So that was split in 3 ways. So Chainlink is 100% pre-mined, and 35% went to the public. In relation to Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV, they are hard forks from the BTC chain. So their supply equally matched the amount of Bitcoin supply at the date of the fork. So there was when both Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Core sort of split off, there was like 16 million coins or something around that mark, and they were equally distributed. Many of the people inside Bitcoin have not really bothered to access any of their old coins that are inside both SV and Bitcoin Cash. And yeah, so I mean, they have a very similar history to Bitcoin, so it went all the way back to Satoshi, but in relation to pre-mining, it's not really a discussion point, because it is a completely different fork altogether. With Litecoin, Litecoin was it did have the origins of an honest start, but because of the fact that there was attention brought towards Litecoin and its launch, the first couple of blocks were mined very fast, because people came to it and then they saw that the launch happened, they immediately pointed mining hardware towards it, and the difficulty adjustment had to adjust to this sudden shock in mining, and so a lot of coins were mined right in the first few weeks. But other than that, apart from then on, it's just generally been grinding up. Charlie Lee did Charlie did take place in mining some of the early coins, but in no way in relation to the way Satoshi did. So, or everyone else who jumped in with their GPU miners, they all got sort of equal mine on that first coin. Now, Cardano was an ICO, and as you can see on here, this is ICO drops here. They had a total tokens of 45 billion coins, and that was sold for an ICO token price of 0.024 USD. So that was pretty much pre-mined. And I'm not entirely sure about the mining on that. I haven't really bothered to look into it. Binance Coin, that was certainly an ICO. As you can see by this, it raised 15 million units and at a price of like 10 cents per unit. So I would assume that's 150 million tokens for the BNB chain. And of course, BNB is now split off onto a whole different chain altogether now. So it used to be an ERC20 token, and then it launched its own chain. So that's moved on from that. And of course, last on this chart, so we've gone all the way down to number 10 and number 11. I'm not going to bother about Tezos because I just wanted to get the first 10 out. But I could not ignore EOS, because what EOS had was a 1 year long ICO, and it's the longest ICO yet to date. And what they basically did is they launched the EOS token on Ethereum. So they launched with basically 1 billion EOS, and they were drip feeding all the tokens to people daily. So there was a bit of a daily sale. You could go in, you could buy a certain amount of EOS per day, and the next day a new set of EOS would be released. And so that ICO just went on for the entire year until it closed. And then after that, the amount of stakeholders got turned into the new EOS chain and got launched. So when it comes to looking at this list, you've got Bitcoin that I don't believe was pre-mined at all. It just basically started from a Genesis block and just got mined in quiet where no one knew about it. Ethereum had 72 million pre-mined. XRP had 100 billion pre-mined. Tether, that's elastic at the moment. Chainlink was pre-mined. Bitcoin Cash is a fork of Bitcoin. Litecoin had like early mining surge, but generally it was sort of passed on to the community to go out there and mine by themselves. Obviously SV is another fork as well, so that's got the same history as Bitcoin. Cardano was an ICO. Binance was an ICO. EOS was an ICO. I mean, a lot of these coins down here are generally ICOs. So in summary, a good deal of the actual coins and tokens which are in the charts at the moment are pre-mined. The only real exceptions are things like, for instance, Bitcoin, a little bit of Litecoin, and a little bit of Monero. The rest of them are all pre-mined. All right, thanks for listening.